See, there's our initial burst of inspiration, David. That's.
I don't know. The story I'd like to tell you about is a trip last year, which actually was an aha moment. Dave Miner, my board chair, and I went to Mozambique, and we started out actually in a really remote part of Mozambique, up by Lake Nyassa. So we visited some lakeshore settlements that were about 100 miles from the nearest road. We had to fly in on this little one-engine airplane, and then we took a big boat across. Our first stop was this place called Ntimbe. And Ntimbe is 40 mud houses, each with their cassava field. There are no concrete buildings, no lights. When we got to our boat came up on the shore, and there was a group of about 50 people, must have been half the settlement, was on the shore, and they were singing hymns and praise songs. Many of you have traveled in Africa, so you can kind of picture what that was. And the people on the boat, the Africans on the boat, knew the songs, so they were singing the songs, and we got to the shore, and they danced us up to the top of the hill. I usually carry this, I used to work at the World Bank, so I have this big black briefcase that is sort of inseparable. And it was really hilarious because they insisted on carrying our luggage up, and there was this one lady dancing up to the top of the hill with my black briefcase on her head. But we took us up there. There was a church at the top of the hill, a mud brick church that they had built, and our host there, a young woman who used to work at Bread for the World, asked them to. Her question was, tell these friends from America how your life is better than it used to be. Well, it wasn't really obvious that their life was better than it used to be. But they started talking, and well, somebody said peace. Because as you know, Mozambique had been through 16 years of civil war, and all these people had suffered atrocities, and they had been repeatedly made refugees. And now they have peace and a pretty good government. And somebody mentioned the school, because 10 years ago they didn't have a school. Now almost all the kids in Ntimbe, even the AIDS orphans, go to school. And that sort of put shivers down my spine, because Bread for the World played a role in winning debt reduction for low-income countries, including Mozambique, which then provoked a major expansion of primary education across Africa, including Mozambique. And so I was really struck that things that Bread for the World members here in Iowa had done to get the Iowa delegation in the Congress to support debt relief, you could see the evidence here on the other side of the world. And there were people there in Ntimbe that had AIDS and they were on the death's door. They're now living and taking care of their kids and farming, and they're on the church's AIDS action team, so they're teaching kids in the school about AIDS and how to avoid it. And many of those women actually, the antiretrovirals are mostly funded by the US government. And then also they're within, they have a line, there's no electricity, but across the lake there's a cell phone tower. And so I think there are a couple of cell phones in Ntimbe. I was really just profoundly encouraged that these very, very poor people, all these people have suffered hunger. All of them know what hunger is. But they really have managed to make their lives better. So I just have taken a lot of hope from that experience. And then when we left there, actually, we spent several days visiting little settlements along the coast. Then we went back across, got back on the airplane, and the airplane crashed taking off. So we came very, very close to instant death. And it kind of put a punctuation mark at the end of the sentence, if you know what I mean. You know, it was kind of like, ooh, this was a message here. And so I think that visit to Ntimbe gave me a renewed sense that I'm doing what I ought to do to help change the politics of hunger. A renewed sense that there is real hope to reduce hunger and poverty. If we can do it in Mozambique, we can do it in almost any country, we can do it in the USA. So it's a recent story, but in fact it's given me an urgent sense of vocation. And the World Food Prize actually sort of fits into that. I feel like, whoa, this is external validation that'll give me a chance to talk to a lot of people about what we need to do to end hunger.
See, two great bursts of inspiration. I had a sneak look at David's new book, Exodus, and I think this is one of the anecdotes in there that as I was scanning across. So that's a plug for your book, and Joe Luck, I think you're also writing your memoir.
Mine within 2 years.
Writing your memoirs or something, so takes care of the literary aspirations, but also a great opportunity to also continue to tell the story and reach as many people as possible. And as Joe Luck was saying, I mean, in your application or your interview, yeah, okay, well, no, I'm not an agriculture expert, not scientists as many of the eminent people in this room are, not politicians that are making the legislation to do this, and none of us up here are. But I think the recognition of the World Food Prize this year, that advocacy and activism are also vital in the fight against hunger, particularly in generating through agriculture development. So maybe if you guys can talk a little bit about the role of advocacy, and particularly at this moment of opportunity that we have now, that we see things moving with the Feed the Future program in the administration. Plug for my organization, the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, and the research and projects that we're working on. With things going, and as we've been seeing in Africa for the last couple of years with the political will emerging there, how crucial is this building advocacy and grassroots fervor to support all this? David?
Well, I think Joe Luck and I represent, we do represent grassroots people, ordinary people who take action to help. And Heifer International primarily is just mobilizing people to help other people, including poor people in developing countries, to help other people directly. Bread for the World is a faith-based advocacy movement. So we are all about getting the U.S. Congress and the U.S. President to do what only they can do to lead change against change in reducing hunger in our country and also around the world. We do have really great opportunities right now. I mean, the world has suffered a big setback because of the economy, because of high grain prices. But the opportunities are very clear. In the U.S., for the first time ever, the U.S. government is leading a World Hunger Initiative, an effort to strengthen investment in agriculture and in child nutrition. I think they're doing a really good job, but it didn't just happen. It happened because Bread for the World and other groups, Chicago Council, lots of people across the country urged them to do it, and many groups, they've done a great job of listening to civil society and private corporations, and so the initiative, even once they decided to launch it, they've been open to allowing us to help shape the initiative. Just 2 weeks ago, President Obama issued a directive to every agency of the U.S. government instructing them all on a coherent U.S. government policy to promote economic growth and poverty reduction in developing countries. This is the first time that the U.S. government has had a coherent development policy since John F. Kennedy. And their agriculture and nutrition initiative is really the leading edge. This is their opportunity to demonstrate how they want to do development assistance. Focus on reducing poverty. Focus on reducing poverty through growth. Listening to the recipient government and to civil society in the country. And again, this one for sure, it would not have happened without several years of campaigning by ordinary citizens all across the United States who care about hunger in the world, going to their members of Congress. And then after we got legislation moving in both houses of Congress, the State Department and the White House launched study processes, and that has culminated in the President's policy. And the job is not done, of course. Congress is not on track to provide the money that the President's requested for poverty-focused development assistance next year. They are not on track to provide the money that he's requested for Feed the Future next year. And if these reforms that he's announced are going to be long-lasting, we need to have them embodied in legislation with bipartisan support so that they have the force of law and that they have some permanence. And all of that depends on people. Those are all things in American politics, and it will not happen unless people here who are living in the United States, have a tie to a member of Congress, unless we get to them and let them know that reducing hunger and poverty is important to us, and we want them to fund development assistance, we want them to reform U.S. foreign assistance so that it has a bigger impact for every dollar. It's the opportunity. This has got nothing to do with the deficit. The amount of money we're talking about is a rounding error in the federal deficit, in the federal budget. And if we can reform foreign assistance, that's really good for the U.S. taxpayer. It means we're going to get more impact per dollar. But it really comes back to people like us writing a letter to a member of Congress, calling the office, pushing. It's organized give a damn, which will in fact lead to an acceleration of progress against hunger and poverty. The same thing, the same thing is true in other countries. What is fundamentally missing is the political commitment to reduce hunger and poverty. Usually, people who have means and power know some things that could be done that would help poor and hungry people, but they don't do them. So I think in other countries too, the way to get political will, I mean, partly you get good political leaders, you elect good political leaders, that's clearly part of the political process, but you also have to have push institutions in your society. Institutions, they can be within government or outside government, they can be political parties or they can be NGOs, institutions that will keep pushing politicians and political leaders to do the right thing by hungry and poor people.
It's an amen to Reverend Beckman. Amen.
Have an amen.
Amen. And yeah, please, Joey.
Should we put David down as undecided on that?
I was going to say that to hear the phrase "organized give a damn" from a preacher was also